Today I'm going to tell you the story about when I edited out a $10,000 shot. But first I'm going to explain how editing is largely cutting out the bad bits, what it means to kill your darlings, and the dangers of the sunk cost fallacy. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me talk about Walter Murch. He's an all-time great editor and one of the best writers on the subject. In his book, In the Blink of an Eye, he tells this story. Walter met some of his wife's childhood friends for the first time, and one of them asked, "Well, what is it that you do?" Walter replied that he was studying film editing. The friend then said, "Oh, editing. That's where you cut out the bad bits." Walter was mad. Of course editing wasn't that simple. How offensive. But 25 years later, Walter had come to respect the friend's unwitting wisdom. And I see why. After 20 years of editing myself, editing really is mostly about cutting out the bad bits. The hard part, of course, is deciding what's a bad bit. Editors starting out can struggle with this, because they have yet to develop an instinct for what is good and what is bad. But it can be a struggle for any of us to let go of any bit, which I'll unpack more later. While I fully agree with Murch that much of editing is cutting out the bad bits, I think great editors take it a step further. Not only do they cut out the bad bits, but they also cut out good bits that don't add to the story. Often attributed to the great writer William Faulkner, the term "kill your darlings" refers to getting rid of unnecessary storylines, characters, or words in a piece of writing, even if they are intrinsically good. So why is it so hard to kill your darlings? I think the main reason we all struggle with killing our darlings is because it's extremely difficult to get rid of something that you've already invested so much time and money in. In fact, there's a name for it. It's known as the sunk cost fallacy, and it's defined as the general tendency for people to continue pursuing an option if they've invested time or money or resources in it. So that brings me to the story of when I edited out a $10,000 shot. I'm primarily a commercial editor, and commercials are not cheap to make. For the sake of this example, let's say it cost $100,000 for a one-day, 10-hour commercial shoot. Of course, there are commercials that cost much more and commercials that cost less, but this is a nice round number for this example. So a $100,000 10-hour day means the producers are spending $10,000 an hour. Let's say the director spends an hour to set up, shoot, and break down a shot. That's a $10,000 shot, just for labor and rentals, not even including the cost of writing and pre-production. So I get the footage and I'm working through my first rough cut, which I always present as scripted, so it includes all the shots. But on my second pass, I have an idea. I think the story might actually flow better without the aforementioned shot, so I show a version like that to the director, and he ends up agreeing with me. And so does the agency, and so does the client. So the spot goes to air without that $10,000 shot, which never sees the light of day. To be honest, this happens to me on almost a monthly basis. In fact, one of the reasons directors and creative directors hire me is because they trust me to tell them what's working and what isn't. And I'm less vulnerable to the sunk cost fallacy because I didn't write the commercial. I didn't shoot the commercial, and I certainly didn't pay for the commercial. Being able to determine when a good bit should go away is one of the single most valuable gifts an editor can give a collaborator. But remember, be gentle in this process, because the sunk cost fallacy is at work. So that's the why, but what about the how? First and foremost, it takes time and experience to be able to discern what's a good bit, what's a bad bit, what should stay and what should go. So just be patient. But here are a couple of shortcuts that I use every day. First, always assume your edit is too long until it's obvious you've made it too short. And two, if you're having trouble deciding what's working, show two versions to an unbiased audience and get their opinion. Shorter and tighter will win 90% of the time. One last thing. You might be saying, well, the projects I make don't have $10,000 shots. Why is it still so hard? It's hard because all types of filmmaking are hard. You went to the trouble of picking up a camera, writing a script, capturing shots, and working hours and hours on an edit. The videos on this channel are not very complex and are certainly not expensive, but I still find it hard to cut things out. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and you might want to check out my free editing business kickstart guide at the link in the description. Now that you know what bits to cut out, learn what to do with the bits you keep with this video. Happy editing.